Am I ready to talk about it? Am I ready to talk about it? I'm ready to talk about it. Are you ready to talk about it? A Little Life is a meat grinder for your soul. That's it. That's how I'm categorizing it. It's a meat grinder. It will grind your soul into itty bitty, bitty, bitty little pieces, and then you have to put them back together. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is MJ and you're at my channel called Reading This Life. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking about A Little Life. Finished this sucker, put it off for 5 years, was nervous, scared to read it. I did, and I kept reading it, which is a true testament to, I don't know, but let's talk about it. So the format for this video is going to be half spoiler free and half spoiler. So if you have not read A Little Life and you are in the market for reading it this year, next year, whenever, we're gonna talk about the spoiler free aspects of my review first. And then I'm gonna put a timestamp here. If you did read this, or if you are reading it and you wanna get to the spoiler section, you can just click ahead to this little timestamp. Okay, so spoiler free. I enjoyed the storytelling. Hanya Yanagihara has a very descriptive way of bringing you into an environment, almost like you're immersed, almost as if you are taken out of your body and you're watching someone else's experience, if that makes sense. It is very theatrical, almost as if I was watching a movie, and you know, getting to know the characters. So I don't think this is a spoiler, but it's about friends from their early days, in their 20s, you know, post-college, first jobs, to their successful life in their mid-50s, early 50s, mid-50s. So this chunk takes you through all of that timeline. You get to know all of the main characters. Some characters you have more of a deeper dive, as well as the people that are in their lives. Is there difficult things to read in this book? 100%. There should be a trigger warning on this book. You know, you will get to a certain section and you are going to say, what am I reading? And do I still want to keep reading? For me, I wanted to keep reading. I wanted to commit to these characters and to the story, and I stayed with it. And, you know, again, not to give any spoilers away, were some sections extremely difficult to read? Absolutely, absolutely. In my reading vlog, you can see some of my emotional reactions to certain sections of the book. But that aside, you know, it is quite a story. One thing that I didn't really notice as I was reading it, but I read an article that talked about some things that you may not know that took place in the book, and I clicked on it and I wanted to read it. And I'm actually going to link that article down below. But the one thing that it said is there's no time. So they don't give a reference to time in this book. So it could be present day. It could have taken place 10 years ago, 20 years ago. There's no sociological references. There's no common references. There's no presidents mentioned. I don't think so. For me, it made me think that this individual was my age, and looking back in time. So when the book ends, one of the main characters is Jude St. Francis. I believe he is 51 or 52. And I'm gonna be 50. So, you know, I kind of related to that. But you really do. I mean, you travel through a number of decades with these individuals, and their successes and their failures and their ups and downs. It is a very moving book. I can understand how people want to put it down. I can understand how people would never want to put it back up, pick it back up. But that's not, this is not a DNF for me. I knew going into it, it was going to be difficult, and I made the commitment to stay with it. Did I want to throw the book across the Atlantic? 100%. It reminds me of that Clockwork Orange. Was it Clockwork Orange? Yeah, Clockwork Orange, where they have the eyes taped open and you're forced to see. That's how I felt when I was reading, is that I couldn't believe what I was reading, and I'm still reading it, and I can't get away from it, and I can't do anything to help these characters. The one thing that this book really touched on with me is empathy. It hit such an empathetic nerve with me, and I'm an empath. I'm an empathetic person to begin with, but it put another layer for it with me. And you know, I empathized with a lot of the characters, especially one, maybe two, but yeah. So I don't want to give a lot away in this review. It is a very difficult book to read. It will trigger you if you are triggered by certain things. I think there should be a disclaimer on the book, maybe, to let people know exactly what it's about. I had a preconceived notion about one thing, and that did come true, but everything else that I experienced, I had no idea that that's what the book was about. So, yeah. Is it one of the most difficult books you would ever read? Yes. Would I recommend it to someone? If they are willing to accept the challenge and go into it with a sense of empathy. Yeah, I would. Is it recommended reading? I think in order to get a better perspective as to how things go on in the world, yes. You know, this book is fiction, but a lot of the things that these characters undergo happens in real life. And I'm not going to turn a blind eye to that. I'm going to acknowledge that even though this character is going through a fictional situation, that there are humans on planet Earth that go through this type of an ordeal and deal with these types of situations. So I'm going to be mindful of that, and I'm going to be respectful of that. And reading helps us escape. Reading helps us find a better understanding. Yeah, so you really need to prepare yourself if you're going to read this book. That's it. I think I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads. Yeah, so it's up to you if you want to take the challenge. If you've never read it, just, you know, take personal inventory and commit to it, and commit to not DNFing it. you know, I think that books can take us to a number of places and help us travel through a number of emotions. And if one of those emotions is sadness and empathy and hopelessness, then so be it. That's why there's 2 covers to the book, and once it's done, it's closed. All right, this is the spoiler-filled version. Spoiler-filled, you've been warned, you've been warned, you've been warned. Spoiler-filled, a little life. Okay, so let's talk about this book in general terms. So all I have to say is, let me pull this closer, we're gonna get close here. All right, let me fix this hair. When I opened this book, I had a feeling that it was going to be about a suicide. I didn't know anything else. I had no idea what this book was about. I had an idea maybe that it was about some friends, but that it ended in a suicide. I loved how we got to meet all of the characters from Hood Hall when they were younger, you know, just starting out and, you know, affording their own places and trying to find their ways in the world with odd jobs, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I loved that. And, you know, Jude's story was just so tragic. It was tragic from the get-go. Like, he was just born under a bad sign, and the things that happened to his life just compounded everything else, you know, through the relationships that he had, the foster care, his parents dumping him, you know, going to try to get adopted, and, you know, people bringing him back, and him having that hyena life inside of him that would make him have tantrums as a kid, and, you know, just heartbreaking stuff. And the part that really got to me was when, you know, the brother and he basically ran away with him, and then they went to, I don't know, was it Texas, Arizona, something like that, and then, you know, he's putting Jude up for prostitution after he's been abused in the home, in the group home. I really enjoyed how the book started off with like all of the characters. So we had JB, we had Malcolm, we had William, and then we had Jude, and then the focal switched primarily to Jude and a little bit of JB. You know, and that's really who, you know, the book does a deep dive on, and should do a deep dive on, because he just had so much going on. I mean, the poor guy. You know, it's super difficult to read. Super difficult to read. The section that got me the most, that I talked about in the video when I was so pissed, is when he was talking to the brother, and he's like, I'm a good cook. I know how to paint things. I know how to build things. I know how to trim this type of tree. I know how to, you know, make this. I know how to fold clothes. I know how to do this. He's telling the brother all of these great things that he knows how to do, and that he can help them earn money, you know, by doing different jobs. And literally, it's like a page and a half of all these great things, right? And then, you know, the brother is basically telling him, no, I'm going to pimp you out, and that's how we're going to make money. I was just like, oh, God. Like, really? Like, that was the hardest part for me to read, besides the whole situation with Caleb. That just made me really angry, too. It was just a little kick in the gut, a little kick in the gut, a little slice here, a little slice there. Like, it was just, like, you couldn't come up for air, except for one part for me. And that's when Harold came into the picture. And when Jude finally, at the age of 30, gets adopted by like the coolest parents in the world, I was elated for him. I was so elated. And like, seriously, I'm reading, you know, that chapter, and like, it started getting all watery eyed and all that. And I was just so happy for him. But even that could not prevent him from being self-destructive. And, you know, him not feeling as if he was worthy of love, and then taking a chance with Caleb and that whole situation. Dear God. Awful. Absolutely awful. You know, these characters had such successes, and along with those successes had such kicks in the head, you know? Like, I don't know. Yeah. So this book is just so heavy on so many layers, and I knew what I was getting into when I was reading it. And I told myself, I said, it's going to be like watching, you know, a car accident. You have to keep watching. You have to keep reading, no matter how difficult it gets. You are not going to put this down, because it was nominated as a finalist for the National Book Award for a reason. So many people talk about this book. You know, one of my friends said she loved this book, and I trust her opinion. My other girlfriend said that she read it and she knew I could handle it. So I'm like, okay. But I did not know what I was getting into when I first started this book. But I knew I wasn't going to DNF it 100%. Yeah, it's heavy. I mean, literally, it's a heavy book. It's 700 some pages, and it goes through what, 30 years of their lives and experiences. You know, just, oh, it's just so, that book is, oh. And the cool thing about the book is that it doesn't give you a time frame. Like, it gives you months. It talks about Thanksgiving. It talks about Christmas. It talks about, you know, the winter and the spring and the summer, and they're here and they're there, but it doesn't give you a year. So you really don't know when this takes place. I equate it to, you know, Jude being my age, because I'm just about Jude's age, and, you know, traveling back in time. So when Jude was little, you know, it would have been in the late 70s, early 80s. Yeah. And I also liked how each character, you know, Malcolm was the architect, William became the actor, Jude became a corporate attorney after leaving the United States Attorney's Office, and who am I missing? JB became the artist. They all, when we met them in Hood Hall, they all went on to like the best possible jobs in their genres, in their fields. So it's kind of almost like a fairy tale story like that. So I thought that was nice. Yeah, but what a heavy book, man. Whew. So very, very, if you don't know what you're getting into and you're like, oh, what did I just get myself into? Yeah, it's that kind of book. But I told myself going in, I wasn't going to put it down. And I didn't. And, you know, there are people in our society that have experienced similar situations. There are children, there are adults that have been victims of child abuse. There are people that are victims of sex trafficking. There are children out there that are active victims of sex trafficking. And if I put this book down, then I am not recognizing their pain. I am putting their pain aside because I do not want to deal with their pain. So I chose to stick with this book for them and for the characters. Yeah. I will say, now, you know, Hanya Yanagihara, she tells a tale. The one thing that I didn't like about her style is the time hops. So, you know, we find that William is interested in Jude, and, you know, William wants to talk to Jude about sharing his feelings with him. And then all of a sudden it's 3 months later and they're together. So those little things kind of made me like, you know, like why such a big time hop? Why such a big jump to the future is what I'm trying to say. So that pushed me off a little bit. But other than that, like, I really enjoyed her writing. And the hard scenes to read weren't especially with the sex assault. They weren't so difficult to read or written in an obscene way that would be detrimental. Not detrimental. What am I trying to say? So Hanya Yanagihara's writing really impressed me in hindsight. As I'm reading through these difficult scenes, it was just enough to trigger you emotionally. Whether it be hatred, whether it be empathy, whether it be, you know, loathing, anger, but it didn't carry over to where it made you uncomfortable. It made you uncomfortable, but it didn't take you to the next level. Does that make sense? Okay, because that's what I'm trying to convey. Like, it was just enough to get you triggered, to get your emotions into this book. But it wasn't enough to take you to that next step where it was, I mean, it was disgusting, but the writing was not obscene or disgusting, but the writing alluded to that, but didn't take you there. Does that make sense? Okay. I don't have a script for these videos, just so y'all know. I just go from off the cuff and what I remember. So yeah, her writing in regards to that was really powerful, and it did the trick because I got pissed. Yeah. And loved the characters Harold and Andy. God bless Andy. Oh my God. What would we do if we didn't have Andy? You know, the psychiatrist that helped Jude, that really turned into being another one of his monsters. Learning that backstory as to how Jude's legs were just completely, you know, crushed by a vehicle. The torment that kid went through and the ripple effects that happened later in life. And the vault that he created to keep that part of his life secret from others. I mean, the strength that takes to keep all that in and to live with that is just crazy. Like, you know, he didn't go to therapy till he was, what, 40? 45? 50? Yeah. The story between him and William, loved it. Loved it. You know, Jude's struggles with his sexuality completely made sense after everything he went through. Yeah, this was a super heavy, super emotional book to read. And I can see why people don't want to read it or don't want to continue reading it or put it down. It's not everyone's cup of tea per se, but this book made me look at people's lives differently. You know, I mean, we don't know what anyone else is going through or what they have been going through, you know, and I will say, and this is just my perspective, because I thought that this book was about a suicide or had something to do with the suicide, the way that Jude left us, not that it was a letdown, but I didn't expect that way. I don't know what I was expecting. I think I was like expecting him to throw himself off a building or something. I don't know. But yeah, the way he went compared to the build up to that point was just subtle. And maybe that's how he wanted to go out, was to have everything laid out, and he injected air into his veins to cause a stroke. Is that what happened? Yeah, you know, and I just thought, I don't know. I thought it would have been a little more dramatic, maybe. Okay. So, did I love this book? Yes. I loved it more in hindsight, I think, than when I was actually reading it, but I didn't put it down, and I'm proud of myself for that, because I think maybe 5 years ago, I probably would have put it down and say, screw this, I'm not reading this, I'm going to read something else. So like I said, I respect people that do put it down, that it's not their cup of tea, but I think that the reason the book was written is to take you on a journey, but also remind you of other people's journeys in this world and how difficult they are, and how negative situations can compound for individuals, and that sex trafficking does still happen, and children are still prostituted, and things like this still happen in foster care and orphanages, and all of those situations where children are abandoned. And it brings light to that. And I don't think there's any other book that would have taken me to that place. So yeah, so I really enjoyed the artistry of the book and the process of the book. Did I enjoy reading some of the passages? No, because I was uncomfortable as hell. But that's what it was supposed to do, I think. So, yeah. So if you're interested in reading A Little Life, there you go. I also would say, what was it? They did this. There was a play. Somebody put on a play of A Little Life. And the character that played Brother Luke and Caleb was the same actor. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Oh, I saw a still photo, and it was just of, a very skinny individual with, basically no clothes on, being picked up and dragged by another individual. And I'm like, oh God. And Caleb and Brother Luke are the same actor. That's insane, but brilliant, So yeah. So that article I'm going to list down below. It was really good. I enjoyed it. So this is a really long review, but yeah, if you're looking to get your buttons pushed and to push yourself, then A Little Life may be for you. Thank you, Hanya Yanagihara. Thank you so much for staying with me during this review. It was a difficult one, but one that had to be done. So if you are just doing the spoiler-free, thank you so much, and I hope you decide to pick it up and stick with the book. And if you did the spoiler version, I hope we can agree on some points, and I hope maybe some of the things that I may have mentioned may have brought some light to the material. Okay. Remember, as always, to like this video, smash the like button, and why don't you subscribe while you're at it? Yeah, be a part of my little Booktube family, and comment down below. Comment down below, let me know. Have you read this book? Are you interested in reading this book? Did my review help? Did it not? Yeah, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. So until next time, guys, goodbye for now.